Welcome to the YCNU podcast. Join us each week for engaging conversations with campus leaders, students, faculty, staff, alumni, and community members. From academics to athletics, campus life, and beyond, we cover it all. Have someone you want to hear from? Let us know. Let's explore the world of Yavapai College together.
Hello again, and welcome to the YCNU podcast. I'm Cadu Medina, your host for today's episode, and I'm here with Meghan Paquette. Meghan, welcome to our podcast. I've been wanting to have you here for a long time. We got a super exciting topic to discuss and to go through some massive details here of accomplishments that we just reached this year, but we'll get there. Can you please, for now, give us an introduction and tell us what is your role here at Yavapai College?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Meghan Paquette, and I am the director for the Early College and Promise programs here at Yavapai College.
And that's what we're talking about today. Can you tell us about the YC Promise program, background, how did it come to exist, and what is it?
Yes. So the YC Promise program started back in 2019. In the spring, we started a committee council type group, and based on the Tennessee Achieves and Tennessee Promise model, we decided to build the YC Promise, which is a program for tuition reimbursement. So students who come to Yavapai College, at least the original program, out of high school, and then come to YC to earn their associates. If they finish that associates in 2 years, we reimburse all their tuition they paid out of pocket back to them.
Oh, that's excellent. We have the program kind of set up in two different categories here, right? The YC Promise high school and workforce programs. What's the difference?
Yes. So the high school promise, that one started in 2019. And that one, like I said, was for high school students. They graduate, and then it was a little bit of an incentive to get them to come to YC, especially with that tuition reimbursement, because the idea is you come to YC, get those first 2 years of university done, or the first 2 years of like an associate's with a trade, and then you get your money back, and you're not going to graduate with debt. So then in 2022, we decided to expand that model, and that's when we introduced the Workforce Promise. The Workforce Promise is actually for any adult in Yavapai County. So you do have to be a Yavapai County resident.
Right.
And then there's a select set of 19 different degrees that are workforce-based to help students get living wage jobs.
Oh, excellent. So there's a number of programs here at Yavapai College that the workforce candidates here can apply for and get that reimbursement.
Yes.
Is that correct? Cool. 19, you said?
16.
Awesome. Well, what I think you kind of said that a little bit in the background there, but I want to bring it up to the front here. What inspired Yavapai College to create these tuition reimbursement programs?
So inspired by the Tennessee Achieves and Tennessee Promise, two things that were found from that was financing is a challenge for students. Now they had a lot of state support versus, YC, we fund this program internally. But what really kind of inspired it was the idea that students should have an opportunity to have a free college experience. So, community college having 2 years, if we can provide that tuition reimbursement back to students after they earn their associates, it's in a way earning a tuition-free degree. Right. So it's saving students time because we're encouraging them to complete in 2 years, but it's also saving them money because then we're giving that money back to them at the end.
Oh, awesome. Let's talk a little bit about eligibility and benefits here. Who qualifies for these programs and what requirements do students need to meet? And what specific costs do these programs cover for students?
So I'll start with the cost. So specifically, it covers tuition. It's a tuition reimbursement program. So it does not cover other fees like textbooks or room and board, meal plans or anything like that. But a good thing with the OER initiatives that we've been doing is hopefully students are not having too many textbook costs, but it does cover
and the
tuition.
Tuition is the biggest part anyways, right?
Yes, that's the biggest portion oftentimes for students.
Okay.
And then in terms of who qualifies, so for the high school promise, they have to be a Yavapai County high school or homeschool student, and They graduate typically in May. We have some early grads. And when the student graduates, they have to come to us that first summer or fall after graduation.
Okay.
So in theory, no gap years. There are exceptions for military or missions. So we can always explore those options. But typically students will come to us that fall after high school graduation. And then in terms of being eligible for the program, the Yavapai County high school or homeschool, and then they do have to qualify for in-state tuition. We do work with students who, if they can qualify for in-state tuition through Prop 308, which means they were not a U.S. citizen, but they can get in-state tuition with Arizona, which is great for some of our students.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then for maintaining eligibility, they do have to file the FAFSA every year.
And spell that out for me again.
Yes, so FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid.
Okay.
And that's where students could see if they're eligible for any federal grants like the Pell Grant, or some of our scholarships require that to be applied. So it's a good way just to double check, because sometimes students don't think they'll qualify for FAFSA, and they do. I remember a student came into the office and was like, I just got like a $2,000 check. And I was like, oh, that means you qualified. That's awesome. So sometimes it's great to see, because students, without being told they have to do it, might not have done it. So that's really great. And then we recommend they do the biggest one they have to do is complete in 2 years.
Okay.
So they have 2 years to complete an associate's degree. And then to help maintain that eligibility and kind of mandatory for their success is to meet with their advisor every semester and check in on that 2-year academic plan, make sure they're taking the right classes in the right semester. And then before that, an orientation just to go over those requirements for students so they know them up front.
Right. Do you think the students think that this is too hard, too complicated, and that might be keeping them from applying for this type of support?
I don't think it's honestly, for most students, they kind of just apply, especially the high school students. They sometimes forget that they've applied because they applied back. For the high school, the cohort for fall opens in November, because that's when they're starting to look at colleges and apply as seniors. And what's really funny is they kind of apply in November, December, January, and then come June, they forget. So then they're like, I need to get in. And I'm like, you're already in. And it's super easy for the students to apply. Once they apply for admission, we have background systems that check for their eligibility, and it pops up in their portal and it says, you're eligible. Do you want in? And all they have to do is say yes. Yeah.
It's incredible. I hear more often than not students saying, or high school students saying like, well, I can't afford college. I don't think that they realize all that is available to them. And then sometimes just the fact that you have to submit an application. They are, okay, that's just too complicated already. None of this sounds complicated. It sounds super simple. And we have the process down to, a system here. So,
and one of the benefits is we have really good partnerships with our local high schools. And the other half of my job is the early college programs. So I work with my team of early college advisors, and the majority of our high school students are already YC students. They might have taken a class or two. Maybe they applied their sophomore year and never took a class, which I hope not. We want them to take classes. But that's really helpful because then they're already a student. So it's really easy just to walk them through and say, hey, let's have you apply for Promise, even if it's your plan B.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Let's look at that. And the biggest challenge I see with students is when they do graduate, or even our adults in the workforce, is that work-life balance. And then you're also doing work-life college balance. So now you're trying to take classes. A lot of our students work, whether part-time or full-time, while going to school. And then they're still trying to finish in that 2-year time frame. So that's the biggest challenge for students sometimes, is to keep on track with everything that's going on there with their life. And that's why we have a lot of services out there for students. So the biggest thing I would say is try the Promise, and we're here to support you to keep you on track.
And that's the important piece of information here. We're here to support them make that 2-year commitment, right?
Yes.
With the advisors and everybody else. I mean, they're not alone in that journey. We're not just going to put the boundary on them and say, okay, good luck.
No, and I've worked with students who maybe had a bad first semester, and we reworked their academic plan and yes, we had to add some summer classes or other things. And it was really helpful just for them to know, oh, I messed up, but I can still do it. And it's
Perfect.
like, yes.
Yeah.
I've seen, I call them my Hail Mary pass students. I've seen it at least twice. I haven't directly advised a student for this in a couple years, but in the first 2 years of the program, there was one in each cohort. They took like 12 credits their last summer.
Oh, wow.
Because that was the deadline. They had to finish, and they did it. So they got their reimbursements.
What a win.
And I
That's
was like,
awesome.
I love those, because those are the students who I was like,
Right.
really? Okay. And then I was like, you know what? Go for it.
Yeah. Well, that's how important it is.
It is. And it was great to see, because, you know, they would send that email like, I did it. And I was like, great, we're going to process that reimbursement for you. And, you know, it is a carrot. We're kind of dangling that tuition reimbursement. But students, when you finish in 2 years, you're saving time and money. You know, you only have so many years where going to college is, especially coming out of high school, like before you really start working or having full-time jobs, it's like, if you can do this in 2 years, it's only going to get, college only gets more expensive, at least so far. And, you know, if you are getting any type of grants or scholarships, there might be time limits on those. So trying to keep on track with that 2 year means if you do go on for, you know, your bachelor's, whether you stay with YC or you move on, you have a little more time to do that because you already got goal 1 done.
Absolutely. And debt free.
And you got it for free because you can use that reimbursement however you like.
I mean, that alone.
I know. I always tell students, I'm like, you could use it to pay tuition for your next degree, or you can use it as a down payment for an apartment. You can use it as a down payment on a car so you can drive to work at your new job that you got from, you know, graduating nursing or radiology. So you never know what students are going to do, but it's a great incentive.
Tell me a little bit about the funding of this. How do we fund this program?
So currently we fund this program internally. So Yavapai College funds the Yavapai Promise. We were inspired by, like I said, Tennessee, but that was funded by the state. There are some, you know, national groups and even state groups that would love to do broader Promise programs. But I'm really proud of Yavapai because we were one of the first in the state to launch a Promise program. So it's great to see all the successes we've had so far.
That's awesome. Which means that this is not tied to a federal or a state grant, which may run out.
Correct.
Depending on, you know, economy and whatever. This is us. This is Yavapai College. So that's why we call it Promise.
We call it Promise, and because we promise we're going to keep doing it as long as we can. And it's a priority because it does directly impact our students and our community. Yeah,
wonderful. Let's get back to the impact that this has in our student body and our community at large here, because I know that there's more to it. Just recently here, we reached the significant milestone of $1 million in student tuition reimbursement. I want you to talk a little bit about that. What does this achievement represent in terms of student stories? How many students have benefited from the program so far? And how do you measure the return on investment on these programs?
Yes. I was doing our 5-year report. So like I said, the Promise, the original model started back in 2019. So we were doing like a 5-year assessment to see where the program's at. And we added up all the reimbursements from all the different cohorts. And we realized in summer this year, past year in 24, we crossed the $1 million reimbursement mark from the 5 years.
That's remarkable.
And it just made me really proud because that's going back to our students, our community, and that's a number of students who then graduated debt-free.
That is incredible.
So that is huge. You know, success stories for me, I can think of so many of my high school students from those first years that, you know, I worked with them in early college and then getting to see them for 2 years in Promise and then graduate.
Yeah.
I remember one high school student, she was in the first cohort for Promise, and she did this summer program, and she then wanted to take a gap year. And we told her, well, you can't do this summer program if you're taking a gap year. You have to come here in fall. That's the goal. And she was like, okay, well, I also want to do Promise. And I was like, same. You can't, you got to come here. And then so she decided, okay, well, I have a lot of dual enrollment, so I can go part-time. And I was like, yeah, you could definitely do that. And then from her experience in the summer program, she actually got a scholarship And then she had to go full time.
Awesome.
And she was like, are you like tricking me into college? And I was like, no, of course not. But then
Maybe,
she did
just slightly.
slightly. But then she didn't end up going full time her first year. And then she was able to graduate early. So she was able to graduate early, debt free. She actually ended up working in the recruitment office. So that's a success to me because it was a student who potentially we could have lost. You know,
Right.
They might have taken a gap year and not come back. And now they graduated with an associate's and are on to the next phase. They ended up going to an art school in the Northwest, and they're doing great. I think about one of our students from the Workforce Promise, our first year. She was attending orientation and she was so nervous. It was an adult coming back. And that was when we were also using the You Belong tagline quite a bit.
Yep.
And she said that really resonated with her because she never felt like she belonged at the other community colleges she tried to attend. And she actually ended up winning like one of the raffles, and she didn't have a computer for school, and that was the raffle she won. So she was so excited. And it just was great to see her feel so comfortable when she was so nervous. And her program is mostly online, so I didn't see her as much over the 2 years. But then I saw her at graduation, and she made an effort to come up, and she was like, I did it. And she was cheering. She was so excited. She was like, Megan, aren't you so proud of me? I was like, you need to be proud of yourself. You did all the work. Like, she finished in 2 years. And so like I said, those are the students that's like when you see them at graduation, you're like, my heart.
Yeah.
It just makes me so
That's
happy.
why I do what I do, right?
Yes.
Yeah. How many students? Do we have a number that we can?
Yes. So this number is based off of the fall 24 graduate group as well.
Yeah.
So we are we're just at 600 students.
600 students.
Yeah, have graduated over the last 5 years.
Wow.
So
that's a big number, 600.
Yes.
Yeah, that's, because sometimes you may think that, okay, $1 million were spent and how many students? Like 2, 3? No, 600. This is the number, this is the impact in our community, right? 600 students that are going to college or entering the workforce with a new degree, a new, skill.
Yes. And what's really cool to see is, so like I said, this program's tuition reimbursement. So you might be like, well, you have them file for student aid. And then if they get a grant or a scholarship, you're not reimbursing that tuition because that's already being paid. It's already a grant. But students who do get college fully paid for, if they still stay in the promise and kind of use it as a backup plan in case they don't get a scholarship a certain semester, we kind of also say that's a good plan B is maybe we'll reimburse a class that didn't get covered or something like that. But for Pell Grant students, our first generation students, Hispanic, there's not statistic significance from like the general population. Like they're graduating at the same rates as traditional students as well. So that's really great to see. And actually our first generation students graduated at even a higher rate.
Isn't that something?
I was like, good job, guys.
Yeah.
So it's really encouraging to see that whether it's because of Promise and they want the reimbursement or once they start, they kind of have the confidence and then they keep going that they can finish in 2 years and be off onto that next adventure.
Wow. Congratulations. This is quite an impact. And we're so lucky to have this available to this community. And I know the Yavapai College community is really proud of this program.
Yes. I'm proud of the work that all the teams that are involved. It's not just me. I get to direct the program and that's a privilege for me. But I do get to work with, the business office and processing for reimbursements. I get to work with advising and making sure students stay on track. So I do get the privilege of managing the program, but at the same time, there are many people steering the ship with me.
With their hands on it. And it should. Let's talk a little bit about community connection here, because you mentioned this earlier, your work with the high schools or your teams work with the high schools and maybe other partners here in town. How do these programs address, the needs of these communities and the workforce and the high school in Yavapai County? How do you guys stay on top of that?
Yes. So looking at the Workforce Promise, like I said, that was a select set of 16 degrees. And what was looked at with that was living wage. So making sure if we're saying you should get a degree in this field, that
Right.
you will make a living wage. And then also looking at the demands in our community to encourage like job availability.
Mm-hmm.
So that group of degrees was based on that. And then for the high school promise, we really work with our high schools, especially at the initial, like in 2019, 2020, when we were just introducing the program, which 2020 was a tricky year for many reasons.
For everyone, yeah.
I do give those first two cohorts of Promise a lot of credit because they had to graduate during that time period.
My goodness, yes.
Which was not easy. But for our high schools, we were really fortunate to have good relationships with all our high school partners with our early college programs. So that really helped us to get in there and discuss the Promise program with like the high school counselors, with a lot of the senior teachers, like for English or economics and government, math, and then doing what we call, we do like senior presentations. So we talk to them about how do you file for financial aid? How do you apply for scholarships? And then we dive into, well, but like Yavapai is awesome. So here's some programs. And we talk a lot about the Promise program and saying to students, like, you really should apply. And then we look at the kind of cost and benefit of this is how much these schools will cost. These are the scholarships you can get there. You have a certain number of dual enrollment. Where does it make sense for you to attend? And really trying to get students to think about that. I will say the upcoming high school generation, they're actually very financially conscious. They are kind of thinking about, wow, certain things are expensive.
Right.
What do I want to do to make sure I don't end up in debt? So we definitely get to work with our high schools a lot and explore the different pathways with YC that will fit with students and how YC Promise can help them.
Right. So with the high schools, definitely a close relationship there. Now, as far as business and people that are already in the workforce, how do we work with our community to kind of reach out to them and make sure that they're aware of this and, create that channel for them to ask us how to do this? How do we reach out?
Yes. So I work with some faculty because when they're recruiting for programs or they're working with local industry partners or workforce groups, that they can promote the Promise as a pathway. I know like with the Workforce Promise, the Associate of Arts in Elementary Ed is one of the options.
Right.
So, the faculty lead over there really encourages people like, okay, do the Promise for 2 years, and then you can do the Teachers Academy with one of the universities for 2 years, and you can become a teacher debt-free.
Okay.
And then working with like the local schools to try and see who is interested in going back to school and how to get them there. So that's definitely one avenue that we work is I try to work with the faculty to make sure they have the resources they need.
So then when students or
industry
community
partners,
members come
yes.
in, industry partners come in to apply for something or get information on the programs that we have available, certificates or whatever it is, then that information is there available to them so they know. I like the word pathway. This is awesome. It's brilliant because it really kind of creates that motion there, I not only have the programs to help our community members to, advance their studies and change careers or get certifications and all that, but we have a pathway to that too.
Yes. And
to make it doable.
It's really fun doing certain presentations, whether at the high schools or out at community events. For the Promise, we're always at our own open houses or tabling at different events that recruitment goes to in the community in the county. And it's really fun when parents are like, oh, I want my student to do that. They're like, I wish I could do that. And I was like, oh, well, you can. There's the workforce. Do any of these sound good? And they're like, actually, I might think about that. So it's great to talk to different people and make college seem possible.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Let's talk about the process here for students to apply and maintain their eligibility. How do you work with the high schools to inform students about these opportunities and other partners? Like specifically, I know that there's more than just brochures that we send out and some events that we create out there. But is there like an official process for these students to kind of come into us, apply, and then go through? What does it look like nowadays? Is it like a website they have to come to, or give us a little bit of an overview of that process?
So if people in general want more information on the YC Promise, they can go to www.yc yc.edu/promise.
Right.
And that has information on both the high school and the workforce pathway. Then if students want to apply, the first step is just to apply for admission to Yavapai College. Once they do that, their portal will pop up with a pop-up saying it looks like you're eligible for the YC Promise.
Okay.
So the biggest thing is when you are applying for admission, especially if you're doing workforce, picking one of the workforce degrees.
Mm-hmm.
The other way students can apply is we do have a link on the website with the Promise program that says like apply here, just in case you haven't applied for admission or the pop-up's not popping up, because technology, sometimes it doesn't. And if they click apply there, we'll go through those applications. I have a council of other academic advisors who kind of help me, and we monitor that. And if a student, their residency isn't showing Yavapai County, we'll send them an email and say, hey, can we update that for you? Is it accurate? Or, oh, it looks like you're in this program. Are you changing? You indicated something else on the application. So we try and work with students to get them in and eligible. And then for kind of how we outreach and get people to apply, like I said, it's just trying to attend more community events. And for the high schools, like I said, we work with the high school seniors a lot, especially this spring semester coming up. We'll be presenting to the schools, we'll be talking to them, and the early college advisors are very trained in Promise, just because that's the next pathway for them at YC. Right. So students who are doing dual enrollment, we go through that with them and kind of look at the academic plans and start building that idea that you can come to YC for maybe just a year because you have so much dual enrollment. It won't take you that long. Or you need to work, or you're looking at the nursing program. So what's your timeline for getting admitted? And we try and help them through those processes. Right. Even one-on-one, we do group presentations and then one-on-one advising.
Right. And the starting point, again, is apply for one of the programs, and that information will just kind of flow through the process right in.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, wonderful. What's the future for this program? What are some of the goals that we have moving forward? Are there plans to expand, modify the funding model in the future? How do community members and local businesses get involved in supporting this initiative?
So some goals for me are to continue to increase that number of graduates and the reimbursements. I am always looking for pathways just to make sure that students are on track for graduation and working with advising. So how can we improve those more internal processes that will long-term really help the student? So it's not necessarily something the student has to do. It's something we're working internally just to make sure it's the most effective for students. And then for expansion, the Workforce Promise was that first expansion. So I think maintaining that for a little bit. So it takes 2 years for us to see the outcomes because it takes 2 years for graduation. So the first workforce cohort just graduated this last spring and summer. The second actually graduated in fall because workforce has 2 cohorts. They have a fall and a spring versus high school just has a fall group. So I'm hoping to see a little more outcomes with like 1 more year of graduates with workforce and then just looking at expansion or modification based on that and see what would be the best for students based on maybe students who didn't complete and why didn't they complete? And is there a way that we can help them get them to that finish line? Because obviously they came here with a goal. So why didn't it get achieved? So looking at that. So that's definitely in my personal and professional goals over these next year. And then for funding, we are always trying to work with, other state and community partners to see, is there an opportunity for a broader promise model? Just depends on legislature and how those things change. So that's always a little trickier. And then how can community members or local businesses get involved in supporting? I'd say spread the word. If you want to ever chat with me, I am happy to talk to anyone. And especially looking at maybe if those workforce programs, if any community members want to talk about that, or local businesses want to create a pipeline for their employees to come through the program, that's a great way to look. And I'm always open to feedback. It was actually kind of nice. I did get an email from students. He mentioned, he was like, you actually seem to listen, so I'm going to send this to you. And I was like, okay, it wasn't related to Promise. It was something else. And I was like, okay, I'll take it. So definitely just looking at I would say one of the big things that I would love to do is connect into the community more, because we're really well connected with the schools and getting into the workforce environment more.
Yeah. It sounds like it's a big population for us, right? The working student.
Yes.
It's becoming bigger and bigger here for us. So I
and
think
students recareering if they studied something and now they're like, I don't know if I like this job, or, the economy in the local environment has changed and there's not as many jobs. So I want to look at this career path. The workforce is a great way to recareer.
Oh, absolutely. Like our demographic now ranges from 17 to 97.
Yes. I mean, I love that.
Everyone in between, right?
Yes.
So you have a lot of the adult population that's looking to just, again, continue their careers or switch careers or expand or improve. So there's a lot there I can see of opportunities for you to make that program a little bit more popular and let people know that this exists and invite them in.
Yes.
And speaking of inviting them in, how do they get a hold of you if anyone wants to ask you questions about this? I know you're so accessible, so let's just drop in a contact line here.
Let's throw it in there. So a great way if you want to specifically go with Promise would be, we have a Promise email account, so promise@yc.edu. If you send an email there, we will check it out. I like easy. Anything I can make a short and sweet.
At yc.edu. I love that.
Yeah, if you email there, we can always send you information on how to apply, or if you're a community member or business that would like more information for either your family or employees, we can send it there too.
I love it. Meghan, thank you so much. This was a long conversation, but so informational. I really appreciate all the details. You are so on top of this program. And it's just a wonderful thing that we do here. And I feel like the more we talk about it, the more people we can reach and can take advantage of what we have to offer here. Anything else? Any final thoughts that you want to share with the community? What does this mean to you? Let me just ask you like a super personal question now. Because, I know you talk with passion. I can see here. People can't see you, but I can see you talking about it, and I can see you getting all excited about the answers. And what does it mean to you to be part of this program personally?
I would say students, I'm going to get choked up, are my heart. I really do care about them and I want them to succeed. Yavapai has so many programs for anybody. And if you're scared to come to school, do it anyway.
Yeah.
Do it scared. And we'll be here for you. And I would love to see you at orientation and then 2 years later at graduation and cheer you on, because that's my favorite day.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Funny enough, I'm sorry I pulled that string on you.
That's
you
okay.
got teary-eyed now. So am I. And this is awesome because I know what this means to all of us. This is my first year working for Yavapai College. And I just last year I went to one of the graduations and I sat there and just watched all those students come up and tell their stories and celebrate their, success and so many different stories, so many different wins were being presented there. And I just remember there just sitting there. And then I called my wife at the end of that. I'm like, this is so inspirational.
It's amazing.
I want my office to be here.
Yes.
So I can be reminded of how important it is what we do.
This is why we do what we do every day.
Isn't that cool?
And I've been here 9 years now, just over 9 years.
Wow,
and
yeah.
I've seen so many changes. And like I said, everyone who works here really does care about students. So
that is,
if you're ever hesitant, just come and we'll chat with you. I actually even saw someone outside and they're like, is this the right building? And I was like, no, but let me walk over. So that's why I was a couple minutes later. But it's like most people are here. They really want to help you. So it's great to be in that environment.
And that's our promise.
And that's our promise.
And we'll close with that. I love it. Meghan, thank you so much. This was so much fun to catch up with you and to learn more about this program.
Yes.
Thank you for all that you do.
so much.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this was Meghan. And you know how to get a hold of her. There's so much more to get out of this girl. So we'll probably have you back here on the podcast sometime soon. We need to get another update on this program once we pass that 1 million mark.
I love it. Absolutely.
We'll have you back. Thank you so much, Meghan, again. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to the YCNU podcast. We hope you enjoyed our conversation today. Don't forget to follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got someone in mind for our next chat? Reach out and let us know. Until next time, keep exploring, and we'll see you next week.